In the long and fascinating history of the Catholic Church, there are popes remembered for their charisma, popes remembered for their reforms, and popes remembered for their holiness. But Pope Benedict XVI stands out as the pope remembered for his mind and his humility. He was a man who bridged the worlds of faith and reason, who loved tradition yet understood the needs of the modern age, and who shocked the world with one of the most unexpected decisions in centuries: his resignation. Joseph Aloysius Ratzinger was born on April 16, 1927, in the small Bavarian town of Markthal, Germany. He was the youngest of 3 children in a devout Catholic family. His father, Joseph Sr., was a policeman who opposed Hitler and the Nazi regime, while his mother, Maria, worked as a cook. The Ratzinger home was marked by faith, discipline, and love, but also by an awareness of the growing darkness that was overtaking Europe. As a boy, Joseph was drawn to the beauty of the church. He loved liturgy, music, and the stories of saints. But his childhood was not ordinary. He was only 6 years old when Hitler came to power. The Nazi regime was hostile to Catholicism, closing seminaries, silencing priests, and twisting education. Young Joseph witnessed firsthand how faith could be tested in times of tyranny. His family remained steadfast, and this instilled in him a lifelong courage to defend truth even when unpopular. Like most German youth at the time, Joseph was forced to join the Hitler Youth, though he participated only minimally. Later, during the war, he was drafted into a German anti-aircraft unit. But as the war collapsed, Joseph deserted, risking his life to return home. He was briefly taken prisoner by American forces but was released at the end of the war. These experiences left a deep impression on him. He had seen how dangerous ideologies could enslave nations, and he became convinced that only truth and faith in God could truly free humanity. After the war, Joseph Ratzinger and his older brother Georg both entered the seminary. They were ordained priests together in 1951, a beautiful moment of shared vocation. Joseph quickly pursued academic life, earning a doctorate in theology. His brilliance was evident to all. He became a professor at several German universities, known for his clarity and depth in teaching. Students described him as gentle, approachable, and deeply inspiring. Ratzinger's reputation as a theologian grew, and in 1962, at just 35 years old, he was invited as Apparatus, or theological advisor, to the Second Vatican Council. Here, he worked closely with Cardinal Joseph Frings of Cologne, drafting speeches and contributing to the council's debates. Ratzinger favored renewal and reform, but always insisted on continuity with tradition. He helped shape documents on Revelation, the Church, and liturgy, urging the Church to speak to the modern world without abandoning her roots. By the 1970s, however, Ratzinger grew concerned. While Vatican II had called for renewal, some were pushing for radical changes that distorted its intent. He wrote extensively, defending authentic reform rooted in tradition. His writings earned him respect as one of the greatest Catholic thinkers of his time. In 1977, Pope Paul VI appointed him Archbishop of Munich and Freising, a rare move since Ratzinger had spent most of his life as a scholar, not a pastor. That same year, he was made a cardinal. 4 years later, Pope John Paul II called him to Rome to lead the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, the Vatican office responsible for safeguarding church teaching. For over 2 decades, Cardinal Ratzinger worked side by side with John Paul II. Together, they confronted liberation theology, defended human dignity, and responded to the challenges of bioethics, secularism, and moral relativism. Some painted Ratzinger as harsh, but those who met him often spoke of his kindness, his shyness, and his love for simple things like playing piano, especially Mozart. Then came 2005. The death of John Paul II marked the end of an era. Millions mourned in St. Peter's Square. The conclave of cardinals elected Joseph Ratzinger as the new pope. At 78, he was the oldest man to be elected in centuries. He chose the name Benedict XVI, honoring Benedict XV, who sought peace during World War I, and Saint Benedict of Nursia, who preserved faith in a time of cultural collapse. In his first address as Pope, Benedict XVI humbly introduced himself as a simple, humble worker in the vineyard of the Lord. Those words captured his papacy: service, humility, and devotion. During his 8 years as Pope, Benedict XVI faced enormous challenges. The wounds of the sexual abuse crisis were raw, and he acted decisively to confront the issue, meeting with victims, strengthening protocols, and disciplining clergy. He was not afraid to acknowledge the failures of the Church and the need for purification. Benedict's papacy was also marked by profound writings. His 3 encyclicals, Deus Caritas Est, God is Love, Spei Salvi, Saved in Hope, and Caritas in Veritate, Charity in Truth, centered on the core of Christianity, that God is love, that hope sustains humanity, and that truth must be joined with charity in shaping society. He also authored the monumental trilogy Jesus of Nazareth, a personal work exploring the life and person of Christ. These books revealed not just a pope, but a theologian deeply in love with Jesus. He sought to show the world that faith is not an abstract system, but a living relationship with Christ. One of Benedict's most famous moments came in his 2006 Regensburg lecture. While some of his words sparked controversy, his message was profound, that faith and reason must never be separated. A world without faith becomes cold and dangerous. A world without reason falls into fanaticism. He reminded the world that Christianity has always held faith and reason together, as 2 wings lifting the human spirit toward truth. Benedict XVI also emphasized the beauty of liturgy. He encouraged reverence in worship, the use of sacred music, and the recovery of a sense of awe before God. For him, liturgy was the meeting of heaven and earth, a place where beauty leads to truth. And then, the moment that shocked the world. On February 11, 2013, Benedict XVI announced his resignation. It was the first papal resignation in nearly 600 years. With humility, he admitted that his strength of body and mind no longer allowed him to carry out the Petri ministry as it required. His decision stunned the Church, but it was also a powerful act of courage and humility. He showed that the papacy is not about clinging to power, but about service. When one cannot serve fully, the most faithful act may be to step aside. In retirement, Benedict took the title Pope Emeritus and lived in a monastery inside the Vatican. He spent his final years in prayer, study, and quiet support for his successor, Pope Francis. Despite occasional controversies, Benedict remained loyal and humble, never seeking the spotlight. His final years were marked by simplicity, silence, and peace. On December 31, 2022, Pope Benedict XVI passed away at the age of 95. His funeral drew leaders, faithful, and admirers from around the world. He was laid to rest in the crypt beneath St. Peter's Basilica, near his beloved predecessor John Paul II. Benedict XVI's legacy is profound. He was not a pope of grand gestures or political drama. He was a teacher, a shepherd, a servant of truth. He reminded the Church that Christianity is not merely tradition or ritual, but a living encounter with the God who is love. He reminded the world that faith and reason are not enemies, but partners in the search for truth. And in his final act of resignation, he reminded us all that true greatness is found not in clinging to power, but in humility and trust in God. His words continue to echo, "The world offers you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness." Pope Benedict XVI, a humble worker in the vineyard of the Lord, a brilliant mind, a gentle soul, and a shepherd who pointed the way to Christ.